From the early to late Showa era, when steam locomotives were still dominant, railway rolling stock underwent a major structural transition toward electric and diesel traction. As with any introduction of new technology, various experimental approaches were repeatedly attempted, and naturally many vehicles of unusual or even eccentric design were created. Although these trains lacked the vivid and colorful appearance seen on modern rolling stock, their mechanical diversity was remarkable, offering a kind of fascination absent from today's standardized and rationalized vehicles. Since I have gradually collected a number of models, I decided to look back on this theme within the range of vehicles I can handle. The first example is the Class 43,000, which was expected to become a full-scale electric transmission diesel railcar. Although it was a pre-war vehicle and therefore different from the post-war JNR, it belonged to the Ministry of Railways, which in a sense may be considered the true predecessor of JNR. At that time, mechanical transmission railcars typically operated in formations of 1, 2, or at most 3 cars, each with its own driver. Drivers would blow the whistle as a signal to shift the gearboxes manually. The Class 43,000 overturned this conventional practice. Since hydraulic transmissions did not yet exist, electric transmission was the only method that allowed a single driver to perform multiple unit control over a long train. Even then, a device called the Codal gearbox, an electrically controlled gear shifting mechanism, already existed and had been adopted on some German and South Manchurian railway railcars to achieve multiple unit control. However, it could not be used on high horsepower vehicles, and issues with maintenance and service life prevented its widespread adoption. Electric transmission had none of these limitations. As with EMUs, a single driver could haul the entire formation, and the train length could be freely extended. Unlike steam locomotive-hauled trains, no heavy locomotive with high axle load was required, which was a major advantage. High axle loads were a serious problem for Japanese railways, whose track structures were relatively weak. Even on the Takedo Main Line, where large steam locomotives exceeding 16 tons per axle operated, the maximum speed had to be limited to 95 km per hour to reduce track damage. Although the Takedo Main Line was being strengthened as a high-standard route known as the Taka Line to support military logistics to Kure and the continent, even this could not allow heavy locomotives to run any faster. In contrast, the Kiha 43,000 had an axle load of less than 11 tons even when fully loaded, making 120 km per hour operation a realistic possibility. In addition to the streamlined front end that was fashionable at the time, the car body exterior had no rivets and none of the reinforcing plates that were then considered normal. It was built in what would later be called a no-seal, no-header style. Despite being a third-class car, it offered generous seat pitch and could be ridden without any extra fare, making it a highly distinctive vehicle. However, with a 240 horsepower engine and a 2M1T formation, the performance was insufficient for commercial operation above 100 km per hour, and such speeds could only be reached by using downhill gradients. As a solution, engineers considered a concentrated power electric transmission diesel train, equipped with 600 horsepower motive cars at both ends, a concept introduced in another video. This arrangement followed the style of the streamlined high-speed diesel trains then attracting attention in Europe and the United States, and it was envisioned as a super express diesel train aiming for 120 km per hour operation. Simulations on the Takedo Main Line suggested that 120 km per hour could be achieved on certain sections, meaning the idea was not entirely unrealistic. Yet the war swept everything away before the plan could be realized. After the war, the adoption of new technologies progressed rapidly, and many unconventional vehicles appeared one after another. Amid the severe post-war coal shortage, JNR aggressively promoted electrification. As electrification expanded into rural areas, AC electrification, which required less expensive ground facilities, began to attract attention. While AC electrification offered many advantages on the infrastructure side, it posed major challenges for rolling stock. AC commutator motor-driven vehicles, capable of direct AC operation and easy rotational speed control, were introduced. However, in a sense, these were merely an extension of traditional DC motor vehicles. As a result, the inherent disadvantages of DC motors were carried over, and engineers were not satisfied with this drive system. As introduced in another video, engineers pursued the dream motor, the induction motor, and this pursuit led to the creation of vehicles of extreme eccentricity. In 1959, two different vehicles sharing the same classification number, Kamoya 790, were born. Their intended role was to operate on simplified AC electrified sections, where moderate performance, low cost, and ease of maintenance were the highest priorities. What made their eccentricity stand out was the drive system. Running a vehicle with a single-phase induction motor, whose rotational speed cannot be varied, was a formidable challenge. One version used a hydraulic transmission, while the other used a gear transmission combined with a fluid coupling, both intended to tame the wild behavior of an induction motor that could only rotate at a fixed speed. Because incorporating these mechanisms inside the bogies was difficult, the design naturally settled into a configuration similar to a diesel railcar, with the engine replaced by an induction motor. Details are explained in earlier videos covering each vehicle, but these trains were truly the pinnacle of unconventional design, far removed from the common sense of EMUs of the time. The hydraulic version had only 2 power notch positions on the master controller, and it even provided automatic regenerative braking on downhill gradients without any additional circuitry. Thanks to the constant use of the hydraulic transmission, acceleration and deceleration were extremely smooth, and driving the train was remarkably easy. Compared with the jerky and unavoidable shocks typical of EMUs of that era, its running performance was on an entirely different level. For the engineers who experienced it at the time, the running performance of this train was recorded as both shocking and deeply impressive. On the other hand, constant use of the hydraulic transmission suffered from poor efficiency, and the range of speeds at which it could be effectively utilized was limited. Nevertheless, Hitachi continued to refine this system and even went so far as to propose its adoption for high-output, full-scale Shinkansen EMUs. This episode illustrates how great the expectations for induction motors were among engineers of that era. Meanwhile, the gear-shifting version of the vehicle was based on a concept similar to the Kotal gearbox mentioned earlier in this video, achieving an 8-speed configuration using planetary gears similar to those found on everyday bicycles. The clutch was implemented by controlling the oil flow of a fluid coupling, and the difference between vehicle speed and the fixed rotational speed of the induction motor, which could not be fully covered by the 8-speed gearbox, was absorbed by allowing the fluid clutch to slip. Because of the large number of gear steps, a locomotive-type master controller was adopted, and the sequential operation of the controller according to speed resembled the driving style of locomotives of that time. Since gear shifting and locking relied on the magnetic attraction of electromagnets, wherein these components was unavoidable, and iron powder gradually accumulated inside the gearbox. The structure was complex yet offered few advantages, and thus the system saw no further development. Members of this development project were later assigned to the Shikoku Regional Bureau, where, in an effort to overcome severe financial difficulties, momentum grew for applying AC electrification technology. They hoped to build a unique system that leveraged Shikoku's isolation from other lines, but it ultimately never materialized. Another technology that attracted attention during this period was weight reduction of rolling stock. Engineers who had trained in Europe returned to Japan and applied the lightweight construction techniques they had learned to create the Type 10 passenger cars. At a time when high-speed train operation on the Takedo Main Line was eagerly anticipated, the prospect of operating between Tokyo and Osaka in 6.5 hours using these lightweight cars became realistic. Since air conditioning was not yet common, the passenger cars could be lightened to around 9 tons axle load even when fully loaded, meaning their impact on the track was not a major concern. The problem lay with the locomotives. The passenger locomotive EF58 had an axle load exceeding 14 tons, yet its output was only 1,900 kilowatts. Although the EF58 had already set a speed record of 121 kilometers per hour while hauling 4 cars, and could theoretically achieve 120 kilometers per hour operation with a shorter formation and altered gear ratio, it lacked the power needed to meet the heavy transport demands of the Takedo corridor. A more powerful locomotive, the freight-type EH-10 designed after the war, had been introduced, and a high-speed lightweight modification of this locomotive was tested. The modified EH-10 itself was not particularly eccentric aside from its changed appearance, but the test formation could certainly be described as eccentric. In 1955, preliminary tests were conducted by hauling freight trains to confirm basic performance, followed by hauling the limited express Tsubaime between Tokyo and Maibara. Since the tests were conducted in December and the EH-10 lacked an SG, an EF58 was coupled behind it to provide steam heating. Furthermore, the EF58 was included so that it could take over operation in case the EH-10 failed. The long formation of the Tsubaime, hauled in appearance by 2 of the most representative electric locomotives of the era running in double-heading style, must have been an overwhelming sight. The tests were completed successfully, and the subsequent trials focused on evaluating the behavior of the locomotive and passenger cars at 120 km per hour, as well as the impact on the track. The formation used for this test consisted of the EH-10 at the front, followed by a Suhafu 42, then two of the latest Naha 10 cars, and behind them the Oya 19950. This was a unique track measurement test car built from a pre-war wooden sleeping car mounted on 3-axle bogies. Using the characteristics of the 3-axle bogies, it measured and recorded track distortion through a purely mechanical system of wires and pulleys. At the very end of the train was the Maya 3851, another vehicle rebuilt from a pre-war sleeping car. It also rode on 3-axle bogies and featured an additional measurement wheel, giving it an unusual appearance. Its car body remained the pre-war steel construction, with prominent rivets that gave it a distinctive look. Although the entire formation was painted uniformly in the standard maroon color, the sight of such a mixed consist of old and new, each with strong individual character. Racing at 120 km per hour must have been remarkable to observers of the time. Despite some remaining issues such as vibration and lateral forces, the overall test results were favorable. During this period, there was active debate over whether the next generation of high-speed trains should be EMUs or locomotive-hauled trains, and it seemed for a time that passenger cars might continue to dominate. However, the subsequent progress of EMUs was extraordinary, and high-speed passenger car trains never came to fruition. Even so, the low vibration and quietness inherent to passenger cars found their ideal application in long-distance overnight sleeping express services, where they continued to play an important role throughout the JNR era. Among the vehicles that supported these long-distance overnight sleeping express trains were the power cars. Although not glamorous, they were indispensable to the revolutionary sleeping cars of the time, which were described as moving hotels. Since only parts of the major trunk lines were electrified, diesel generators were essential for onboard power. However, as electrification progressed from the Sanayo region toward Kyushu, the idea emerged that running diesel generators for long distances under the overhead wires was inefficient. With the technology of the time, it was not easy to convert the 1500 VDC from the overhead line into the three-phase or single-phase AC required for passenger services. This led to the idea of installing a motor generator set instead of a diesel generator. Today, the notion of using an electric motor to drive a generator may seem strange, but at the time it was considered perfectly normal. Yet despite the progress of electrification, many sleeping express trains continued to run through non-electrified sections, making it impossible to eliminate diesel generators entirely. Furthermore, as AC electrification progressed, rolling stock now had to cope with three different operating environments: DC sections, AC sections, and non-electrified sections. In the end, it was considered most rational to equip the power car with both a DC motor generator set and a diesel generator, with AC sections relying on diesel generation. This led to the creation of the Connie 22. With two pantographs raised like an electric locomotive, the train presented a distinctive and memorable appearance. When the power car was coupled directly behind the locomotive, it even looked as though the train were being hauled in double-heading formation, something that fascinated many fans of the time. However, installing two generator systems inevitably increased axle load. Although the Takedo, Sanayo, and Nagasaki lines had been strengthened since before the war for military transport and thus had no major issues, operations toward the Kagoshima area faced speed restrictions. Under certain conditions, the power car caused more track damage than the locomotive hauling it, resulting in more frequent speed limits and longer travel times. Meanwhile, the lightweight construction techniques that had blossomed with the Type 10 passenger cars spread to EMUs and diesel rail cars, greatly contributing to the development of lightweight rolling stock. One such vehicle born from this trend was the stainless steel diesel rail car Kiha 35. The very idea of a commuter diesel railcar designed to handle massive suburban transport demand may seem strange today, but at the time electrification had not yet progressed far, and replacing steam trains with diesel railcars was considered natural. Amid black smoke, soot-covered locomotives, and brown passenger cars, the sight of an unpainted silver-bodied diesel railcar running with a bold engine roar must have seemed, in a sense, like a bizarre machine, yet also a symbol of a brighter future. However, despite advantages such as improved fuel economy from reduced weight and the elimination of painting, stainless steel construction was difficult to process and expensive, preventing widespread adoption. The rapid spread of diesel railcars soon generated new demands, one of which was the sleeping diesel railcar. At the time, long-distance overnight semi-express and express trains connecting major cities with regional centers were extremely common, at a level difficult to imagine today. Because these trains had high occupancy rates, there was growing interest in whether the flexibility of diesel railcars could be used to operate them more efficiently, and expectations for sleeping diesel railcars increased. This led to the development project using the Kiha 52 as a base. In an era when even air conditioning was considered a luxury except on limited express services, the engine noise during summer, when windows had to remain open, was a major issue. Diesel engines inherently produce intense noise and vibration, especially with strong low-frequency components, making soundproofing and vibration isolation extremely difficult. Because diesel railcars lacked sufficient output to include unpowered trailer cars, the engine noise itself had to be addressed directly. While vibration could be reduced to some extent by improving the method of mounting the engine under the floor, no practical solution for noise suppression was in sight. At the same time, the radiator cooling fan was also a major source of noise, prompting efforts to deal with it as well. The proposed solution was to mount the radiator on the roof and use the airflow generated during running for cooling. This proved highly effective, eliminating the power loss associated with fan drive and improving running performance, making it an attractive and promising approach. Thus, a Kiha 52 equipped with cooling fins on the roof and fitted with a sleeping berth in one section of the passenger compartment was used for running tests. Although expectations were high for the sleeping diesel railcar, the noise problem could not be solved. Furthermore, as demand for long-distance overnight trains on regional lines declined, the concept never came to fruition. Later, when overnight buses gained a certain level of acceptance, it became clear that noise and vibration were tolerated to a surprising degree. However, the real issue was fare structure. Unlike buses, whose infrastructure maintenance costs were largely covered by taxes, night trains could not adopt such low fare levels. Ultimately, this economic reality contributed to the disappearance of overnight trains. This has become quite a long story, yet we have only reached the mid-Showa era. There is still much more to cover, so I would like to continue the rest on another occasion.